Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think of one point where it's all gonna end, yeah. If you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you one where it's all gonna end, yeah. If you give me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you one where it's all gonna end, yeah. If you give me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Won't somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise.
not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very, very good evening. Wednesday, the 23rd of July 2025. My name is Raj Amir. This is a Recusant 9 transmission. A very, very good evening to all of you. You seem to be coming back every night, so I find that amazing, really. I find it amazing that the interest doesn't wane, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people, more and more people who are involved in this campaign. There's some breaking news I want to get to in a moment. In fact, I'll get to the breaking news right now. Just give me 1 second. Let me bring something up. The National Crime Agency, remember, under Suella Braverman, and after Sajid Javid, Suella Braverman came in as the Home Secretary. Priti Patel was somewhere in there at some point, but I think this was under Suella Braverman. This came in with the support of Charlie Peters and GB News, without a shadow of a doubt. But we forced this. Collectively, we forced this. We forced the National Crime Agency to intervene, because what was taking place in localities across the country, in police forces across the country, was the endemic corruption and the failure to safeguard children in the first instance. And then the police did what the police does best, which is launch Operation Cover-Up. And Operation Cover-Up was basically the police force covering their own asses and hiding the grooming gangs, protecting the child rapists, police forces across the country. And that's why the National Crime Agency were called in. You can say, oh yes, it's because they operated across county lines and stuff like that, and all of that is valid. Of course it's valid, but that's not the only reason. The main reason was, and the government will never admit it, but the main reason was the police forces across the country had been compromised, and the National Crime Agency, the equivalent of the United Kingdom's FBI, took over. And interestingly, they've taken over everywhere but Greater Manchester, and specifically Oldham, which I find rather strange. But we'll get to that element slightly later. Now, Operation Stovewood is what it's called, and 3 men have been found guilty of raping children. 2 men have been found guilty of raping a vulnerable girl in Rotherham 25 years ago. A third man, aged 14 at the time, raped a second girl. A jury at Sheffield Crown Court also found today, and that today is the 23rd of July. So that is what is taking place, and this is on the National Crime Agency's own webpage. I'll bring it up so you can see it yourself. Here we go. National Crime Agency. And you can see who these men were, and you can make a decision yourself as to what their backgrounds are. Sagir Hussain, who lived in Rotherham at the time but is currently in prison serving a sentence for separate sexual offences, is now 39 years old. So this is the guy who was 14 at the time. Kesser Ajib and Mohammed Mahmood, both 43 and of Rotherham, were aged 18 and 20 at the time of offending. During a period of more than 2 years, starting in 1999, when the first victim was 14, Ajib and Mahmood raped her. The girl was attacked by Ajib whilst out in Rotherham. Ajib made conversation with the girl and gave her alcohol before luring her into an alleyway in a residential area where he raped her. Mahmood carried out his attack when he found the girl waiting at a bus stop one evening. He invited her to smoke a cigarette with him, then led her to a nearby graveyard where he raped her. The second girl, aged around 14, used to see Hussein around Rotherham town centre. On one occasion, Hussein led her down an alleyway and said he would not let her back out unless she had sex with him. She refused and he raped her. I think what this is demonstrating is simply a culture of Pakistani men running feral in Rotherham and doing what they wanted, dragging whoever they wanted off the streets and raping them. I can come to no other conclusion other than that, and I doubt for one moment these are the only two children that this happened to. I think there's so many more that were involved and simply haven't come forward. And if they were doing this in Rotherham, where else do you think they were also doing this? Officers from Operation Stovewood, the NCA's inquiry into historic allegations of sexual abuse in Rotherham, contacted the victims, now in their 30s, after identifying they may have been victims of child sexual abuse. So what that tends to mean is that the National Crime Agency, are going through the old police records where children or others repeated being raped, gang raped, and the police, South Yorkshire Police in this instance, covered things up. And what the NCA isn't giving out really is how many of these survivors they're going to, how many victims they're going to, who are now in their 30s or 20s, and how many are saying yes and how many are saying no. I think that would be a valuable statistic to have. Maybe it's something that the Rape Gang Inquiry can submit as a Freedom of Information request. I'll put it into Rupert Lowe and his team to see whether we can obtain that information, because I think we would all find that information of value. Ajaib, Hussein and Mahmoud subjected two girls to devastating acts of sexual abuse, the consequences of which the victims have lived with for almost 25 years. These victims have now at last had their voices heard and their accounts believed. While this could never eradicate the suffering caused by their attackers, I hope it will pave the way for the women to move forward with their lives. Both women have shown enormous strength and courage in speaking their truth, and I am pleased that the National Crime Agency has, through careful investigation, helped them find justice. I encourage other victims of child sexual abuse to report what has happened to them, no matter how long ago the abuse occurred. Child sexual abuse can be reported to the police or in person by calling 101. Yeah, good luck with that. And the specialist prosecutor from the CPS Organised Child Sexual Abuse Unit. So do you see how the machinery of the state is now mobilising? The National Crime Agency, the Crown Prosecution's Organised Child Sexual Abuse Unit. None of these things would have happened in the way that they have happened if so many of us, so many of you, had not sacrificed so much to get this over the line. No, I don't think they are. Owen, this is to do with historical child, this element of the National Crime Agency. The National Crime Agency wouldn't pick up on new cases. If you'd followed the work, you'll see that the Home Secretary had instructed the National Crime Agency to go and look at the cold cases, and then most recently, when the National Inquiry was announced, she confirmed that there was at least 1,000 cases that they'd come back with. So I'm just reading some of your comments. The Crown Prosecution Service will continue working closely with our law enforcement partners. All three men will were remanded in custody ahead of sentencing. And remember, one's already in prison anyway. The NCA's Operation Stovewood remains the single biggest investigation of its kind, looking at allegations of abuse in Rotherham between 1997 and 2013. To date, 46 people, including Hussein, Ajib and Mahmoud, have been convicted. Remember, the official figures, I think, were 1,400 girls in Rotherham. So 46 is, an insignificant number, I believe. So that is breaking news, is that these three men are the latest in the convictions. Now, for me, they're not, this doesn't follow a traditional grooming gang model. But I think what's clear is the cover-up does. The cover-up by South Yorkshire Police does. And I don't believe for 1 minute these three men just happened to come across just these two girls. Well, clearly one didn't, because one's already in prison for separate sexual offences. Sagir Hussein. Okay, let's move on to the focus of this evening, which is the postal votes and the fraud and how they rig the elections. Now, first of all, I'm going to play a little question by Robbie Moore. I'll just bring that up for you. Just give me 1 second. And Robbie Moore asked the Justice Secretary a couple of days ago about postal vote fraud. So the thing with postal vote fraud I'm finding very interesting now is that the Conservatives, and we've been going on about it and for 6 years, we've been going on about postal vote fraud for as long as we've been going on about child sex exploitation and the cover-up equally, because one has helped facilitate the other. So it's refreshing to see that the MPs now, multiple MPs from different parties, Reform, the Conservatives, and also Rupert Lowe with his Restore Britain movement, is now focusing in on postal vote fraud. Now, I will this evening show you how the postal vote fraud actually operates and how they've got away with it for as long as they've got away with it. But I want to bring this up first.
Many voters still remain intimidated. And the most important element of our electoral system is that it is a secret ballot, and that it should be down to the individual to make up their own minds. And therefore I am deeply concerned that across the country the widespread use of postal voting is allowing dangerous fraud, in which many voters still remain intimidated and coerced into using postal votes on the instruction of somebody else. The review covers many practical aspects of postal voting, but what steps is the government taking to ensure the accuracy and honesty of the postal voting system?
Minister.
The honourable gentleman will be aware that his party introduced a series of changes, including on voter ID and other checks as electors register to vote. I'm all too aware of areas where these issues need particular focus, and we have retained the protections on postal vote. So I want to reassure the honourable gentleman that, as he knows, the number of issues around postal votes, there are laws in place to make sure that forgery and impersonation does not happen, and we are making sure that we retain the appropriate checks and safeguards that were put in the past.
Rachel Blake.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. President Trump's direction and
The MP who's responding to him is Rushnara Ali, Bethnal Green and Bow. In a past life, I worked with her, I worked for her as well. She should know all about postal vote fraud because of the demographic and the area she comes from, which includes Tower Hamlet. And remember, the former mayor Lutfer Rahman was, got himself in trouble, banned from politics. A judge confirmed the fraudulent behaviour of what was taking place in Bethnal Green at the time. So, safeguards in place, she claims. No, never. Now, postal vote fraud is real. It's not a myth. The Electoral Commission confirmed it and listed my town in the hit list of places with the highest level of concerns. And indeed, Sheila, ask Jim McMahon, and he does know how it works, because there was a 100% surge in postal votes in an area around a mosque when he first got elected, and that wasn't me, that was reported in the Telegraph, I think, rather than Raja Mir. So, you've got to understand the underlying conditions, first and foremost. And the underlying conditions include the breeding ground where this is possible lends itself to tribal type communities. So clan-based communities such as the Pakistani communities and the Bangladeshi communities, which vote not along clan lines but village lines, district lines, where they come from back home. So that's how both of those communities work. One is clan, tribes, and the other one is like a village district sort of diaspora. And what happens in these communities historically is everyone just voted Labour. Everyone just historically voted Labour. But then factions started to emerge at a local level, at a council level. And that's when this postal vote system, the rigging of elections, became fine-tuned. And I'll show you. Let me show you how it works. So what you'd have is, we have elections in this country at a council level, effectively, a local authority level, and parliamentary level, yeah? So local authority level and parliament, yeah? And they are actually, in these communities, they are combined. Now what's happened historically is there's been a line crossed here, and at Parliament, historically, and we're talking, post historically the last 25 years or so, when Tony Blair changed the rules so postal vote can be applied to everyone. So what happened post that was the parliamentarians, the MPs in the main, were white. So the likes of Jim McMahon, as we now know him, those, yeah, the white Labour Party MPs. And the arrangement was, as long as the postal votes came for these people, in the sackfuls, they were willing, these MPs were willing to divvy up the councils so that the Asians, the Pakistanis and the Bangladeshis could take over. Now have a look at the councils across this country and you'll see what I mean by that. Disproportionate over-representation. In my own town, it's increasingly becoming more and more Muslim, more and more Pakistani and Bangladeshi every year. So what's taking place here is the historical community leaders, or the village elders, as you might know them from outside the community, would become councillors. And they'd secure the postal votes from within their communities. And I'll explain how the fraud works in a moment. And then, when it came to the general elections, the MPs would task each of the councillors, councillor 1, councillor 2, pretend they don't know what's going on, but they really do, to make sure that the postal votes that came in for them are then passed on here. And in return, they support these councillors, and then they also protect them. They also protect them. Which is essentially what happened with the rape gang scandals. So the postal votes are central to what takes place. Now, this is how the postal vote fraud works. You have households that are registered for postal votes. And if they're not registered for postal votes, what you have is the electoral list, the marked register it's called. The marked register. The marked register gives the candidates a list of everyone who's registered for postal votes and everyone who isn't. So they'll go to the households that are registered for postal votes, and they'll also go to the households that are not registered and encourage them to sign up. Now, pressure is put on these people. So straight away, what the pressure is, the legal sort of pressure and the illegal sort of pressure. The legal sort of pressure would be the local councillor turning up to my auntie's house, for instance, with the imam from the mosque. The legal might also be the local councillor turning up with your employer. So if you own the local restaurants or the taxi firms and so on. And that's what takes place. And I'd like to see... So what you've also got, and you understand with this latest person here, who's posting here, is this is a move by the Pakistani cartels and the Bangladeshi bootlickers to try and harass and intimidate me. So the police are fully aware, but the police support these people. So that's what's taking place with him. So Jenny, if you just give me a second and I'll explain what's going on. So as our numbers have grown and grown and grown, and I am explaining things to people so you understand them, they are getting more and more agitated and angrier. And you should see more and more of that if you follow me online. You see them putting comments on, making just outright lies that I've been convicted of fraud, I've done this, I've done that. Many of you are new to me. I have no convictions whatsoever. I have a 25-year career in public service. And every time they've tried to smear me, they've made it up. And it includes politicians and police officers and the CPS and every element of the machinery of the state making things up because I am explaining this to you. I am campaigning on the cover-up of the grooming gang and the national inquiry and all of that, and they don't want any of this to come out because this is how they plan on taking over, through the rigged postal vote system. So when I say legal, soft power, soft pressure, the local councillor will rock up with the imam or someone from the Labour Party, or one of the community elders will turn up with the restaurant owners or the shopkeepers, people who are powerful and influential, who runs the community centre. These things matter. In the communities where I come from, these things still matter. We're still small communities. We're still very community spirited, and I say that in a really positive way. I don't mean that as a negative, people know each other still. And what you'll see is these people will hand over their postal votes at the elections. They'll hand over the postal votes. Some will fill them in whilst they're sat in the room with them. Some will hand them over blank. Then you've got the illegal route, which is basically the Pakistani gangsters, the heroin dealers. If you come to my town, you will find that there are multiple councillors whose immediate family members are drug dealers, money launderers, convicted. The leader of Oldham Council, Arud Shah, her brother is a convicted money launderer, for instance. So when the Pakistani gangsters turn up, they'll turn up to these houses where they know they are registered because the Pakistani gangsters have got the marked register. And they've got the marked register because they've got the marked register of the local councillor. And they'll go to these households and they will hand over the votes, postal votes. And what the Pakistani gangsters tend to collect is uncompleted postal votes. You've just signed it, that's it. You've not put a crossing or anything like that. And then you've got, because they've got the marked register, they'll go to the households that aren't registered. And they'll say, we've noticed you're on the electoral register and you can vote, but you're not down for a postal vote. Here, fill this in and you're registered for a postal vote. And what you find in the run-up to elections now, again in places like where I come from, a surge in people who are suddenly registering for postal votes. Now, why is it easy? Because again, in the communities I come from, you have a father. Sorry. Let me do this again. We operate under extended families. So there'll be a father and a mother. And that's smaller for a reason. The father has the influence and the control and is linked externally to the community. You'll have child 1, child 2, child 3. She will then have her brothers and her sisters. He will have his brothers and his sisters. They in turn have children of their own. Families we come from, it's still normal for the children to live with the parents. And also above here, if the family's multi-generational, there's at least one living grandparent. The children have a wife or a husband. And they'll have, say, 2 children each. And these children now, of course, are approaching 16 years old. In terms of the history of how long these people have. So one family has 1 vote, 2 votes, 3 votes, 4 votes, 5 votes, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So one family, and I'm being reserved, conservative in my figures here. But one family will have at least 30 votes per family. So you have 30 votes per family. How do you win an election? Now, in a local council election, 1,000 votes will win it comfortably. In most cases, in the Asian areas where the postal votes are fighting with each other, where it's high. So you get 30 votes in a block vote. 30 votes times 10 families. That's just 10 houses. That's 300 votes. 100 families gives you 3,000 votes. 500 families gives you 15,000 votes. Why am I saying this to you in this way? Let me show you what I mean by this. So a council election, remember I talked about local authorities? A council election, somewhere like where I live, you have 20 wards. Okay, so there's 20 different councillors times 3, so there's 60 councillors. So if there's 20 wards, there's 2 constituencies. So there's MP constituency 1 and MP constituency 2. Where I am, there's 9 wards per constituency. Now, what you have is if you got the network worked out, you've got 9 councillors times 3. You've got 27 councillors. Those 27 councillors are increasingly more Muslim. The white ones are being voted out, manoeuvred out. So if 27, yeah, sorry, I'm doing this so I want you to understand it. If there are 27 councillors, and say 20 of them are Muslim, say 20 of them are Muslim, and 7 aren't, just say. And the Labour Party has put them there. In each ward, there's about 7 wards there. So in the 7 wards, there's 3 councillors each. So just the 3 families themselves give you that right? Do you see how it works? So they put the families in, they put the candidates in who can support, who've got the family networks, who can collect the postal votes. And remember, they operate on a clan basis. Remember I talked about a clan basis or a tribe basis? So these aren't 300 separate families. So the families are connected through a clan. Remember all the clans, the issue you guys have got, one of the issues, and Kemi Badenoch raised it herself, the leader of the opposition, and she used the term integration as one of the issues of first cousin marriages. Well, first cousin marriages isn't just about deformed babies. It means that they operate on a clan-based system, and the heads of the families gather all of their families, and there'll be, I don't know, 200 families easily per clan. So there you go. That's why the Labour Party have historically entertained it, because the Labour Party took time to understand how ethnic minority communities work, how the Bangladeshi communities work, and how the Pakistani communities work, and they took their time to do deals in these communities and nurtured the leadership within there to say, okay, you can come on board, because we know if we support you to be a councillor in your ward, you, come election, will supply and coordinate and supply sackfuls of postal votes for me as the white plantation owner MP. See? It's completely rigged. It's rigged across every town and city in the country where there is a Muslim bloc vote. And it's rigged this way. Now, I've seen with my own eyes men walking on the street collecting postal votes, sackfuls of postal votes. The police know it's happening, but they're part of the problem. They're part of what's been rigged. And in terms of what the Electoral Commission is doing about it, the first thing it did, it campaigned and it banned voting without ID. And it put in place some safeguards around postal votes. So there's two parts of the form now, where you sign one and you post it into put things into different envelopes. But essentially, guys, it's rigged. I've seen how it's rigged. And what happens, what the gangsters do, what the entrepreneurial gangsters do, you know, these are the heroin dealers, the child traffickers. Do you know what they do? They go around and collect the signed but unmarked postal votes. So they'll turn up to a meeting the night before the postal votes have got to be sent up, and these meetings happen in every one of these Pakistani and Bangladeshi areas. I've seen these meetings myself. I've seen where they go. And these guys will sit in and come in and say, right, I've got 200 postal votes for ward number 1. Who wants to buy them? And the candidates will essentially bid to buy them. They'll go from one candidate to another, and they'll sell the postal votes and hand them over either for money, but more importantly than money, once you get in, I want the grants, I want the government, I want the council contracts, I want you to take care of me in case I get picked up for raping a little girl. I've also seen them go in where gangsters affiliated with different factions in different wards will go in and say, you know what, we're not contesting ward number 1 where you are, and you're not contesting ward number 2 where we are. Can we do some postal vote swapping? If we've got our clan members to collect some, and we collected our votes in number 1 where we're not standing what you are, we'll hand over these votes if you hand over your clan's votes in postal vote area number 2. I think James Smith needs to come on here. I am a native white British and I reverted to Islam. Alhamdulillah, I am very happy. Allahu Akbar. You see, these are the This is what's going on. Now you get agitated. How do you think I feel when I get followed home? How do you think I feel when I see these people openly call for my murder and Greater Manchester Police protect them? So postal vote fraud is very real. It's not a myth. And you know what the Labour Party have done? They've done two things. They've reduced the voting age to 16, so to capture the younger demographic, particularly in that postal voting family. And then, secondly, they've changed voter ID. They've got rid of voter ID, so you can now vote with a bank card. Many of these guys will just collect the bank cards, but they don't need to. The voter impersonation is now very low because they brought in voter ID. It'll go back up now, but voter impersonation isn't where the ballot rigging really takes place. The ballot rigging really takes place with the postal votes. And there you have it. Now what you've got is Rupert Lowe and his Restore Britain. And to give him his credit, Richard Tice as well has also come up and stood up in Parliament and talked about it. Let me just find what he said. Just give me 1 second.
With the House.
And I'll bring up what... Give me 1 second. Here we go. It's the same question, or a similar question, but again, it's Labour plans for votes at 16-year-olds are wrong, but we must tighten postal voting rules to prevent fraud. Currently 5 postal votes can be carried to polling stations. Why more than 1? So people can carry 5 postal votes even on the day to polling stations.
Of postal voting. I myself, Minister, have seen... Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There is much to welcome within these proposals to enhance our democracy, particularly around safety of candidates. We at Reform are very much against votes for 16 to 17-year-olds. It's interesting to know that they themselves are completely split down the middle on this issue. But I would urge the Minister, in particular with regard to postal voting, we have grave concerns about the risks to security and the risks of impersonation of postal voting. I myself, Minister, have seen people carry bag loads of postal votes to a polling station on election day. That is surely completely wrong.
Minister. I want to reassure the honourable gentleman that we take those issues very seriously.
And we've all seen this.
Personating
and
another
voter
is a deliberate act of fraud. It completely undermines our democracy and is a serious criminal offence.
I mean it. The police are partners in this. And sometimes I also feel like giving up. This week has been particularly challenging for me. I think every night I have gone to bed, expecting the police to hammer at my door. To give you some context of where I'm up to, the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police has wrote back to me today, or his office has written back to me today, and they are lawyering up, I think, against me. I think is what's going on. So if I do anything against them, they'll try and lawyer up and beat me with the millions they've got and the resources they have. So I've got all of that also going on, as well as these Islamist nutcases. So this is what Restore Britain have come up with. And Restore Britain is basically it's a think tank, isn't it? It's a policy. I think tank's wrong. It's a policy mechanism led by Rupert Lowe, so we can have the big debates on some of the biggest issues. So that's what I think he wants to do, and this is what he put up. And Restore Britain reposted it. Restore trust by abolishing mass postal voting. And this genuinely brought tears to my eyes. It's genuinely brought tears to my eyes. And the reason I have not been taking a case against the police, and why I probably must do, Rick, is because I've been busy focusing on, and it's took everything I've got to help get this public inquiry over the line. That's why. And then I'm going to go and find a lawyer. I've got to go and do all of that now, which is now what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to go and find some money. How many fights do you fight at once? Postal voting on demand has made our elections vulnerable to fraud, coercion, and manipulation. Voting should be a serious act done in person at a polling station with full supervision. Postal votes must be reserved for those who are genuinely housebound or abroad for official reasons, e.g. military or diplomatic services. These must be individually verified, security-checked applications. Proxy voting may be allowed under strict regulation. Proxy vote is when someone goes and votes on your behalf. So if you're in hospital or something, and they've tightened that up, so I think you can have 4 or 5, The crowdfunding, for those of you who don't know, I crowdfunded a lot. I crowdfunded a lot of leaflets long before many of you came along, and an election campaign where I campaigned on this issue and fought to get this, out there. The crowdfunder page has took down my page for inciting hatred or something after my election finished, and that was because of repeated pressure from powerful politicians, the same powerful politicians who had many of my YouTube videos removed. I don't think some of you quite understand how powerful the machinery of the state is and what we've been fighting, and how it's a miracle. Thank you so much, Roy. How it's a miracle we're still here. And I don't think some of you understand how much lawyers' fees are. I was hoping that Maggie Oliver, who's a far more accomplished person than I am in her bigger name, she'd raised £150,000 for private prosecutions, but she's done nothing with it. I was hoping she would have instigated private prosecutions against some of the police officers, and that would have then given me a route to understand what happened and how we progressed. Yes, indeed. There are weeks where I don't. Yeah, it's beyond my. Yeah. I won't do that. I won't ask anyone else to do something like that, so no, I won't do that. Let's get back to this, because this is important. Launch a full review, so this is what Restore Britain want, to launch a full review into previous allegations of postal vote fraud, particularly in areas with repeated irregularities. Well, the Electoral Commission has a list of those. Those found to have manipulated ballots, intimidated voters, or exploited vulnerable communities will face criminal prosecution, deportation if foreign. Well, I don't know, straying hand there to something else, but it's fine. The review needs to happen. The British public must have confidence that elections are free, fair and secure. That starts with ending the system most open to abuse. Restore trust by abolishing mass postal voting. So that is where we are up to. And when we started this, I explained and I articulated how the fraud works, and they got angrier and angrier and angrier. I think Melanie, I'm surprised they haven't yet. I think Melanie, the thing with the petitions is it's got to be done by, I believe in coordination. So we saw what Rupert Lowe and his team did with the declaring of ethnicities, the registering of ethnicities of rape gangs, people accused of child abuse. And they smashed 100,000 in like 9 hours. I think Rupert Lowe and his team need to do something similar with this. But it's come to the summer recess. But agreed. And agree. So the postal vote has to go, no question. It's got to go. Now we know the Conservatives now are against postal vote fraud. They didn't do anything for 14 years they were there. We now know Reform are against it, and even Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. So everyone on the right in that space is against mass postal voting, and they want it abolished. And that's where we're up to. It needs to go. And I know postal vote fraud takes place in my town. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it with my own eyes. On an industrial scale. I'll take some questions before we wrap up from the evening. We've got more to do tomorrow. There's a lot more to do tomorrow. Well, if you're registered disabled, you'd get one, won't you, Chloe? I agree about the genuine housebound people. But you've got to get rid of mass postal voting. That's what we're talking about, mass postal voting, where anyone can get one. And harvesting is the right word term. They've harvested votes. They've harvested votes. I think the 100,000 and having the debate in Parliament is a good place to start. And I think what we finally got is Restore Britain have come up with this. I think it's a great idea by Rupert Lowe. I think, you can see they're all on the same page on this. The Conservatives and also Reform are on the same page as this. So hopefully one of them will set up the petition and we will get the 100,000. We need it again in record time. I have no trust in our voting system. I know it's rigged. I've seen it's rigged. Rigged in so many ways. And if you believe, for those of you who believe, for instance, the headscarf, the hijab, and women are forced to wear that, of pressure to wear that. Actually, what the postal vote fraud does, it actually disenfranchises women more, because in these communities they have less say. It disenfranchises them more, and I have no doubt that every one of these children who are 16 to 18 will be disenfranchised. Those things they're not games I want to get involved in. I see some of you guys do it on the internet, on other broadcasts. You know, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a that. I'm not interested. I'm a grown-up. Honestly, I'm a grown-up. Right. Thank you. And that's the thing, isn't it? There's got to be, we've got to revamp it. We've got to revamp it, and there is no excuse for able-bodied people to have a postal vote. No excuse whatsoever. You've seen the stuff with the bent police officer. Bent police officer, says Raja. I'm going to do some more on that tomorrow. You're new to me. These people don't even acknowledge I exist. And I'm blacklisted on GB News, so you know. Okay. Yeah, and Billy did see vote. Billy saw different from of vote rigging. So what Billy saw was when they count the votes, the Labour Party supporting council staff, a lot of the counters are council staff. They stole votes from one pile and moved them into another. So that's another space where it gets rigged. But, good people, when you have people who are watching how things are counted, you can keep your eye on that and stop that from happening, which is what Billy did. Yeah, the fraud isn't really at the polling station anymore, Sonia. The fraud is the postal votes. Right, I am coming to the end of my evening with you guys, just checking if we've had any new sign-ups. We're coming to the end of our phase, I think, before we break up for the summer. I think people are tired as well. We've had no sign-ups. So absolutely no sign-ups this evening. Hope you found it of value. I will write about this properly and demonstrate to you all the ways in which postal vote fraud takes place. If you find value in my work, if you are new to me and you find value in my work, this is what I've been doing for the last, it's coming up to 7 years now. So please, please, please do sign up to Red Wall and the Rabble. That's my own independent page. It's where I share all of my work. It's of value. I know people find it of value, so please do sign up to that. We've stalled on our, on our members. And if you can please consider buying me a coffee. Now, remarkably, we've had the Facebook figures have come back and they've shown us to have 4.4 million views over the last month. if they translated to 1% of sign-ups, I would have been celebrating. But remarkable viewing figures, 4.4 million for a month. So I know people are watching, I know people are listening, and I know people are taking value. So please, if you can, give a little bit back. Press like at the very least. Have a good evening, and I've got some substantial updates tomorrow for you. Take care. Good night.